Austin, Texas, December 6, 1991. The city still believed it was safe. Live music spilled from bars on 6th Street. College students argued about bands and finals. Christmas lights flickered weakly in shop windows, promising warmth in a year that felt ordinary, predictable, harmless. At the corner of West Anderson Lane, a small yogurt shop prepared to close. I can't believe it's yogurt. Fluorescent lights hummed. Plastic spoons clinked softly against paper cups. 4 girls worked the late shift. Teenagers saving for college, gas money, independence. They joked about customers, complained about sticky floors, counted minutes until closing. None of them sensed what was coming. Sometime after 11 p.m., the lights inside the shop went out. Neighbors noticed nothing unusual. A dark storefront meant only one thing. The girls had finished cleaning and gone home. But they hadn't. Inside, the air was thick with smoke. When firefighters forced the door open hours later, they expected a routine call. Maybe faulty wiring, maybe a trash fire. Instead, they found hell. The bodies lay in the back of the shop. 4 of them. Bound, shot, burned. The youngest was 15. The fire hadn't destroyed the crime, it had tried to erase it. And as investigators stood among melted plastic and blackened walls, one truth settled heavily over the room. This wasn't random violence. This wasn't panic. This was deliberate. Austin woke up to headlines that felt impossible to read. A yogurt shop, a place parents trusted, where teens worked their first jobs, had become a slaughterhouse. Fear spread faster than facts. Who could do this? Why didn't anyone hear screams? And how could 4 girls vanish into smoke without a single witness stepping forward? Detectives would soon realize something far worse than the brutality itself. The killers hadn't rushed. They had time. Time to control. Time to bind. Time to decide. And time, in a quiet city that believed it was safe, was the most terrifying clue of all. By morning, Austin no longer felt like Austin. Police tape cut across West Anderson Lane like a wound that refused to close. Reporters crowded the sidewalks. Parents drove past the yogurt shop slowly, gripping steering wheels tighter than usual, trying not to imagine their own daughters inside that building the night before. Inside, investigators worked in near silence. The fire had done its job too well. Walls were scorched black. Evidence melted into the floor. The smell of smoke clung to everything, not the sharp scent of a quick blaze, but the heavy residue of something meant to destroy. And yet enough remained to tell a story. The girls had been herded into the back. They were bound with their own clothing. Some had been shot execution style. Others showed signs of having been restrained longer, as if the killers took turns, as if time was something they believed they had plenty of. The fire had been set last, not to kill, to erase. Detective Paul Johnson stood near the backroom doorway, staring at the floor. 4 victims. No forced entry. No clear robbery. The register still held cash. That detail changed everything. This wasn't about money. This was about control. The victims' names quickly filled the news. Eliza Thomas, 17. Jennifer Harbison, 17. Amy Ayers, 15. Sarah Harbison, 13. Sisters, friends, children. Austin had never faced a crime like this, and the pressure on the police department became immediate, suffocating. Witnesses were interviewed through the night. A man seen near the shop, a suspicious car idling too long, a vague memory of voices after closing time. None of it solid. Everyone remembered something, but no one remembered enough. Then came the first theory. Someone knew them. Someone who felt comfortable walking into a brightly lit shop after hours. Someone who didn't worry about being challenged. A former customer? A local regular? Someone from the neighborhood? Or worse, someone who had planned this long before that December night. As days turned into weeks, tips flooded in. Thousands of them. Every phone call felt urgent. Every lead felt possible. Every dead end made the city angrier. Parents demanded curfews. Businesses changed hours. Teenagers stopped working late shifts. Austin had lost its innocence. And somewhere in the chaos, one chilling fact remained impossible to ignore. The killers had never been in a hurry. They stayed long enough to bind 4 girls, long enough to move them, long enough to decide how it would end, which meant one terrifying thing. They felt safe there.
The first suspects came quickly. Too quickly. Under pressure from a terrified city, detectives needed names, faces the public could focus on, explanations that sounded like progress. And soon, the investigation narrowed its gaze on the people closest to the scene. Teenagers. Friends and classmates of the victims were pulled into interrogation rooms. Some came in voluntarily, others were escorted by frightened parents who believed cooperation meant safety. Hours turned into nights. Questions repeated, stories retold until details blurred. Exhaustion replaced memory, and in that fog, investigators began hearing what they wanted to hear. Confessions. Or at least, something that sounded like them. 4 young men, local teens with no criminal records, became the center of the case. Their statements were inconsistent, their timelines shaky. Their words, under pressure, began to contradict one another. Police believed they had their killers. The city wanted it to be true. But there was a problem. No physical evidence connected them to the crime scene. No fingerprints, no DNA, no weapons. Only words extracted after endless questioning. Words later recanted, rewritten, disputed. Defense attorneys would eventually describe the interrogations as coercive, confessions shaped by suggestion, by fatigue, by fear. The truth was becoming dangerously flexible. Meanwhile, the real evidence sat quietly in storage. Unprocessed DNA, unexamined fibers, burned fragments that technology at the time simply couldn't read. Science lagged behind horror, and time began to work against everyone. As the case stalled, Austin's fear curdled into anger. If these boys weren't guilty, then someone else was still out there. Someone who walked freely through a yogurt shop, controlled 4 girls, and vanished into the night without leaving a face behind. Someone patient. Someone careful. Years passed. Charges collapsed. Suspects were released. Lawsuits followed. And the case, once loud, frantic, desperate, grew quiet again. Too quiet. The yogurt shop murders didn't fade because they were solved. They faded because the city was tired of asking a question it couldn't answer. What if we never caught the right people? And worse, what if the killers were watching all along, learning how close they came and how far they still were from justice? The investigation intensified, but answers were elusive. Austin police combed through every clue, every witness statement, and every scrap of evidence. Yet the perpetrators remained unseen, and the community was gripped by terror. Detectives focused on patterns. The victims were all young women working the night shift. The attackers seemed to have planned the crime meticulously. There was no clear motive revealed at the scene. Rumors and fear spread rapidly throughout Austin. Residents avoided late-night outings. Parents warned their children. The once lively streets of the city at night were now silent, heavy with suspicion. Psychologists and criminal profilers were brought in to understand the attacker's mindset. They suggested the perpetrators were likely familiar with the shop's routine. They may have targeted the victims specifically or the location itself. The brutality indicated deep anger and possibly prior criminal experience. Despite intense media attention, tips flooded the police department but led nowhere. The case grew colder with each passing month, and the city felt the unrelenting weight of fear and unanswered questions. Some crimes leave no immediate answers, only a lingering shadow over the city that refuses to fade. Months turned into years, yet Austin remained haunted by that horrific night. The 4 young women who had been brutally killed in the yogurt shop were gone, and the sense of safety in the city was shattered forever. The investigation continued with relentless dedication. Detectives revisited old leads and tips. Forensic evidence was re-examined as new technologies emerged. Witnesses were re-interviewed, hoping memories might reveal something previously overlooked. Despite these efforts, the case remained largely unsolved for decades. It became a cold case, one of the most infamous unsolved crimes in Texas history. The community mourned. Vigils were held in memory of the victims. Families of the deceased sought justice tirelessly. Media coverage kept the story alive, the reminder of the tragedy. In 2020, a breakthrough occurred. Modern forensic techniques identified potential suspects, offering hope that justice might finally be served. Yet the story remains a chilling reminder. Violence can strike unexpectedly. Innocence can be lost in a blink. Some mysteries cast long shadows that linger over a city for generations. The yogurt shop murders left Austin forever changed, a dark chapter in its history that continues to evoke fear, sorrow, and the determination to never forget.